Welcome, everyone, to Cosmic Convergence, a show for experiencers by experiencers. As usual, we're not entertaining the official story, the sanitized narrative, or the nothing to see here garbage. Instead, we're joined today by Mr. Steve Mera, a veteran investigator who spent over 40 years digging into the phenomena that institutions would rather keep compartmentalized and forgotten. Steve stepped out of the ordinary world decades ago, committing himself to the investigations of UFOs, UAP materials, paranormal investigations, manifestations, and high strangeness events with a level of discipline that stands in a stark contrast to the evasiveness of official government narratives and clickbait YouTube channels. With former training in parapsychology, he brings scientific structure to subjects that have been deliberately ridiculed and ignored. He has founded and led major investigative bodies, including the Manchester Aerial Phenomena Investigation Team and the Scientific Establishment of Parapsychology, and he serves as a director and chief editor of Phenomena magazine. You should check it out. One of the most widely and distributed publications covering UFOs, the paranormal, and the unexplained. Steve has delivered keynote speeches at international symposiums, challenging the field to stop playing by the old rules and confront the phenomenon regardless of the endless masks it likes to wear. And he's brought his investigations to the public through video documentaries and series, including Netflix's Unsolved Mysteries. Across decades of fieldwork, Steve uncovered what many still refuse to acknowledge. UFO phenomena and paranormal occurrences are not separate categories. They overlap, share witnesses, and erupt from the same hotspots. His research dismantles the exhausted phenomenon narratives that have kept the public chasing fragmented dead ends. Steve, welcome to Cosmic Convergence. It's an honor to have you here.
Thank you for having me on, John, and it's great to have a chat with you guys. Looking forward to it.
Thanks for being here.
So, as I said to you before recording, I've been watching you for some time, and a lot of things that I was interested in this subject as a young child has come back full circle as far as investigations. You have Dr. Carla Turner and others that talked about the phenomena and the impact that it's had on our culture and people, right? And so I'm starting to I was starting to watch your content, and I'm thinking, wow, this is, again, it's leading me back. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to interview Steve, and where in the world do I start with these questions? Because you've investigated for 40 years, right? 41. Yeah. And so there's a lot to cover. And so I figured, well, I'm just going to pick whatever resounds to me. And so I'm just going to kind of just cut to the chase on one of the first ones. The Colares incident, which happened in Colares, Brazil, was that was like in the 90s, I believe, wasn't it?
77, 78.
I'm sorry, 77, 78. There's so many things happen that, on a consistent basis. But during the Colares incident, investigators documented that the victims had possible unusual hemoglobin loss and what appeared to be targeted influence with blood chemistry. And that kind of correlates with some other abduction reports that mention shifts in iron levels and unexplained anemia. Is there any possible conclusions that we can draw about the way that the phenomena interacts in certain cases like Colares with people?
Well, in regarding the 77, 78 incidents of Colares in Brazil, it was a very strategic agenda that took place. I mean, it was, if you went through the whole process of literally 7 months of constant barrages, the technique of how they approached it and got what they wanted, and timings and the effort, it was strategic. It was very strategic. If you put it down on a piece of paper and you had someone look over it, you'd say, yes, someone or something has thought this out very well. They came from the sea, the estuary it joins to the sea, came from the water, and then they'd suddenly lift from the water, and as they rise, and then they head towards the deeper jungle to cover themselves. It's basic warfare in a sense of speaking, in a sense of how they're doing it. And then what they'd do is they'd lift from the jungle suddenly and descend upon the town, because the town edges onto the jungle and the small villages, and attack the people. I mean, it's a stereotypical scene, which I'd love to see in a movie sometime, but this is a scenario that took place. This is real. You got four guys in a flatbed truck, and they are driving dirt roads around these buildings because they're being pursued in the sky by a craft that's firing lasers down at them, and it's missing them. It's hitting the truck, it's hit the floor, it's trying to hit them. You got two guys in the back banging on the top saying go, 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 while this thing is chasing them. They're trying to get out of the way of the damn thing. That is a real incident. That's what sort of thing was taking place. That's how bad things got. I mean, these objects would suddenly descend over a home and fire a beam of light down, which was about 24 to 26 centimeters in size. Would come down,
Wow.
penetrate the roofs, penetrate the ceilings, the walls, and it would pass right through. Okay, so the physics is we're dealing with physics beyond known physics. In 77 and 78, that is. Then it passes into the room, this tube of light, and as it gets about so far away from people which are lying in their beds or lying on these hammocks and things, it stops, and then out of it comes a smaller one, a smaller light, which is maybe about 6 or 7 centimeters. And it is that, at the end of that pierces you. And it literally puts about 6 or 7 holes into you. You wake up, you're paralyzed, you can't move. You're absolutely in tremendous pain, but you cannot move. You have to endure until it's done what it's done. People reported the smell of ether, which is very interesting because we know the smell of ether, not sulfur. Ether in this case, because we have plenty of sulfur type stuff. Ether, which is very interesting. So, of course, okay, so they wanted to make sure that maybe no infections were going to be delivered, during this procedure. The whole point of that was to extract the iron from the body. That's all they did, and there was initial records that came out said about 1,200 people suffered. It was over 2,000 people suffered. The new information that we've got, because we've just never let go of this case. We just keep pursuing and pursuing. The mayor got bombarded so much that he had to call in the military, which led to Project Saucer. The Brazilian soldiers came in. They had one instruction: do not engage. Do not engage the phenomenon. Sit back, record it, monitor it, photograph it, film it, interview the people, but do not engage. And they didn't. They weren't there to help the people. They were there just to monitor and gather data. The people looked to them to try and get some reassurance. Please help us. This has been going on for months. Some people fled in so much fear that they just fled. But what we were unaware of is that how many people in Colares actually went missing. A lot of people went missing, and they've never been found. So what the hell was going on? Now, this was a very large agenda which took place. It was recognized by the military that it was non-human intelligence. I've seen the evidence to support that. There are data, there's information, there's drawings, all sorts of documents. It indicates non-human intelligence being seen and being interacting with during these incursions. So for people, some researchers out there, no names mentioned, which will say, oh, it's a psyops, they're just trying to make the aliens look bad. Right. Big problems here. First things, they're not aliens. The second thing is, they are bad. Some of them are. Some of them are really up to no good. And they are planned incidents like this. It's not the only one of its kind. People say it was a one-off. No, it's not. Happened again in India. Exactly. And do you know what? If you were to look at the town, the little village, it's exactly the same. There's no policing, there's no military presence. It's in the middle of nowhere. These people are vulnerable. It's surrounded by jungles and forest lands. Again, exactly the same agenda took place in India. So you know what? This is no by chance. It's strategic planning. These are the people that we want because this is where we can get our job done with a less, without being noticed so much, without rattling the cage of defence and ministries and things like that. So they extracted the iron. The only reason why I think that they were extracting the iron because they were being set up for further contact, and the phenomena does seem to have somewhat of an aversion to iron, and we can get into that because I know that you're going to be asking me something a little bit more about that maybe a little bit later. But the Colaris was not the only incident. Only about 5-6 months before, it's kicked off with the Crab Island incidents. Again, people perished. The people perished at Colaris. They said, oh, maybe one died because he already had an illness. No. Now we're getting into 6, 7, 8. We're finding because these are the ones which have been seriously covered up. And it's very hard to get the data. And the only way to do that is to get people on the ground. And there are people I know in Brazil, good friends and researchers, brilliant researchers, and they are finding out stuff. And the more they're digging, they're saying, well, yeah, because people are coming forward and said, well, my father died after that thing hit him. Well, hang on, what's his name? Oh, he's not on our list. He was ignored. His death was ignored. Why? Why are they hiding this? So, and even the doctors, the doctor experienced it, the hospital doctor herself. So the thing is that they've never, by pressure, literally from people, they said, oh, right, well, we're going to have to release some stuff from Project Plato or Project Saucer. And they did. And they released about 60 photographs, a few documents and pictures and things. It's nothing. Where's all the video footage? There's hundreds and hundreds of hours of video footage and interaction with these entities and photographs and stuff. No, you're not going to get that because it changed the narrative. Because they want to try and push the narrative as it's a psyops. It was us. It was the US forces.
CIA. Yeah.
CIA. Now, if it was the CIA, let's just take into granted. If it was the CIA doing this, then we have to say, okay, they've got over 500 various types of craft, some of which are about 6 times the size of the largest airliner you can find, which actually launches smaller vehicles off it. You've got triangular ones, you've got source ones, you've got ones which change shape. They're changing shape, They can maneuver in the sky silently beyond normal physics, So, and we're trying to say, okay, well, are we happy to accept that in 1977? That over 500, some of these crafts were so big. People said, the fishermen said on their boats, it engulfed them 60 times their size airship. They could see it underwater. It was huge. What the hell are these things in 1977? I was 10 years old in 1977. This is not, you were 5, John. So this is not us. Now, if it was happened today, I'd have to really go to town on it because I'd have to say, well, do you know what? We have got a bag of toys now, which looks like the phenomenon. We're really going to have to work at this, but not in 1977, guys. You know what I mean? But there are some researchers that just have their own narrative. The aliens are good. The aliens are great. The aliens are here to love us and save us and all that. And those are the ones that'll turn around and say, it's got to be a psyops because they wouldn't do stuff like that. These guys haven't got a clue what these things can do. So for me, it is probably the world's most significant case, which really does deserve thorough research. And I talked to a friend of mine who made the Virginia, the moment of contact, and
Nice. James Fox.
and I said to James, have you ever thought about Klaus? He says, yes, I have. I said, it's on my book. He said, it's on my cards. I said, okay, because that one, the people are still alive. The people who had these experiences, you can talk to them, you can see the wounds on the body. What a great documentary that would be to be thoroughly done. So I do think it's the unestimated incident. You know, it doesn't get as much cover. A lot of it's been swept under the carpets over the years. But I do think it's probably one of the most significantly reported incidents in the world. There probably are others, but we don't get to hear about them because of language barriers and communication walls, you know.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's
And I just want to touch base on the iron again and anemia because it's just very odd. And I'm not going to get into detail about my own, what I consider a soul abduction experience, if that was even it at all. But I had just correlated this after I watched one of your discussions with Nathaniel Gillis, all due respect to Nathaniel, about anemia and having an experience with the phenomena in an entity form. I had that soul abduction experience, and it didn't dawn on me. And this was in 2024, beginning of early 2024. I had gone to the doctor's office for a checkup, and the doctor had said that my blood test results came back as anemic. I don't have a history of anemia before that abduction attempt. I don't have it in the family. And then so she's like, okay, take some iron supplement pills. Now, I had watched a video with Nathaniel about the protective properties of iron, which, yes, again, I'd like to get into a little bit later. And I had a piece that is, I collect gems and minerals and semi-precious stones. So I had one that had a lot of iron content, and I put it right next to my end table near my bed. I was like, okay, after this experience and seeing what they're talking about iron, because in medieval times they've used iron as protection, I've gone ahead and I've put that there, and I didn't have any other occurrences like that. But so I took my iron supplements, and for my next checkup 3 months later, she said, oh, your levels are too high. You're taking too much of it. And I said, okay, you want me to quit it? You want me to take half? And so she said, well, just take half of what you're taking. Well, I decided I was going to test it out, and I didn't take any at all. And then I went for my next test. No, your iron levels are fine, and they've been fine ever since. It was just during that occasion with that attempt. Now, as far as I know, I don't have any markings on my bodies or any holes or puncture wounds. But I found that was oddly synchronistic with everything that had happened, that I was suddenly, oh, you're anemic, John, where I'd never had that before and not since. So I want to verify that, though, like you do with your investigative research. I want to, next time I go to the doctor's office, I want to be like, hey, do you have a time into which you extracted that blood and did the test to find out, to see if there's actually correlation or not? I'm just not going off of what my mind is telling me. But anyway, I just found that really interesting, Steve, and I wanted to bring up that correlation.
It is interesting. I mean, it's not something new. It goes back a long time. I mean, history books are wrong and stuff. When you start to do the research, you look at sort of the Aztecs and the Incas and the Mayans and stuff, and the stuff that they were doing. They were sacrificing their own clan, hundreds of thousands of them, to the deity. Most of which, because if we see films or a documentary and stuff, you'll see that most of them were using men, but actually they weren't. Most of them sacrificed women, believe it or not. And it was women during the menstrual cycle. And why are they sacrificing women during their menstrual cycles? Because there's hardly only iron in them. They become anemic. Menstrual cycles cause that because obviously the blood loss and the loss of the iron within it causes low blood iron counts. This is when you start to do the research, you start to find women having most of their experiences, even in alien abduction cases, you start to really get. It's a lot of researchers won't touch on this because it's a bit tongue in cheek. But at the end of the day, though, some of that stuff which is tongue in cheek gives you evidence. 70-80% of the women in abduction cases are during the menstrual cycles. Why? So people should be asking those questions, but it goes back a long, long time, But iron, yeah, they do seemingly have a problem with coming with iron, not just iron in the environment or close to our skin or even touching our skin, but actually the iron which was even within our bodies. And the problem is that we live in the world now that we don't get as much iron from the food that we eat. Because it's crappy food, guys. You might look nice and green, and they make it look very nice and fresh. But at the end of the day, the content of iron in that is next to nothing compared to how it should have been. So the problem is that most people are walking around vulnerable to the phenomena and not even know it. You know, people start living their lives with low amounts of iron, and they don't take supplements. You know, so part of the process when people are having certain experiences, we introduce three things. We introduce iron to the environment. Iron 55, it's the iron that rusts, wrought iron. Iron 55 it's called. We keep that in close proximity to where the individual in their home will be most times. So if you said to you, John, where's the most likely place to find you over a duration of time, it's going to be either sat at your computer or you're in bed asleep, or maybe even sat watching telly. But I would say bed is probably number one, you know, in a lifetime of staying in your home. So you want it in that environment where you spend the most time, especially, you know, once UV disappears from the sky. You know, because these things will perform during UV, you know, if they really want to, but they prefer to do it under the, you know, the shade of darkness, you know, out of UV. So I'd also say introduce UV in lamps and things like that into the home, you know, especially at night time, you know, darkness when there's no UV around. Let as much UV light in during the day into the environment. Natural UV is good because it carries terahertz frequencies. And also boost your supplement iron in your body, you know, because these are the things that seemingly they just don't seem to like. And it causes an aversion or evasion, if you want to call it that, with phenomena, and it's proven, it's tested, even to the point when we're doing statistical surveys on alien abduction cases. This is when I sat down with Mary Wadwell and others, and I talked with them in regarding that. The Foundation of Free is called. It was put together by a number of specialists and Edgar Mitchell, of course, who's an astronaut, and they wanted to check into how many people have found it helpful. And there's quite a high amount of people that are finding iron and these other things, aversions, helpful in regarding the phenomenon. It takes a step back. So then you really got to question why. And there's a load of physics that's involved in that, but we can talk about that, you know, because there is, you know, it's not just a theory. There's chemical, mathematical, and all sorts of evidence to support it.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you so much,
And
Steve.
one of the things I wanted to touch on was something you mentioning, and I try to explain this to people because I know what you're talking about. There's so many narratives out there, and you know, you have the narratives love and light, then you have the narratives they're all evil, and then I personally have had both very negatively seeming experiences with shadow beings and also positive experiences, which is weird. And there are cases where someone will have like an abduction experience, completely terrified, knew something weird happened, they were completely frightened, only to happen a hypnotherapy session, and it wasn't so negative. But then also the reverse is true.
Mm.
So, you know, so it's just like this weird, and common sense to me tells me, well, we live in a world of duality, right? Like, you know, we have great people and then not so great people that don't have your best interest in mind. What's to stop the universe from replicating that elsewhere, whether other beings of other dimensions, whatever you want to talk about. So it's just, I try to keep an open mind. And I won't even say that my negative experiences were completely negative because I don't know. Like now that I'm finding out, now that I'm older and researching this, what really happened. I would like to get regressed. Maybe it'll help clarify that. But just to show people it's not really black and white. It's weird. And then there's always that.
Great.
Yeah.
Excuse the pun, but it
Yeah,
is. I mean, look,
exactly.
I know people have nicey experiences and euphoric experiences,
Yeah.
and they think I don't think those things happen because I don't talk about them much. Well, that's because that's not my research. I don't need.
Right.
Look, there's 3.6 billion people on this planet have had euphoric experiences with probably this phenomena. They don't need another one to be added to the list. All I'm doing is I'm bringing to the table what should be there. What's missing is the other side of this, because people just go, it doesn't fit with the good stuff, let's get rid of it. And they will do.
Yeah.
They'll get rid of it, they'll hide it away. You don't get to, it's harder to find this type of stuff, but it exists.
Cognitive
And the thing
dissonance.
is, it happens. And I keep saying to people, look, this is the phenomena that it's the same hand that feeds that's the same hand it bites. Yeah, you don't know what type of experiences people are going to have. Some craft come down outside, you see it, and you think, oh, this is interesting. You don't know what's going to result. Is it going to be a positive experience or negative? People don't know that, and people need to be aware of
Mm-hmm.
this. They need to be given the full set of cards to say, look, might not happen, but this could happen. Let people decide, not just paint a picture of all love and light, and then people going through terrible traumatic experiences, which
Mm-hmm.
connects a lineage for them because the phenomenon's got a hitchhiker and it's hooked into them and it follows a genetic code down their path. It's this guy who got wrong information, who've experienced phenomena, is now unfortunately going to pass it on to his kids and their kids. And, that's the big problem. I just want to put it all on the table and say, look, guys, make your own mind up. It's your choice if you want to do that. But at least be aware of the negative and the positive, both sides of the coin, not just it's all love and light. And that's all I wanted to do. I just wanted to bring the
Right.
level back up a bit, because all the love and light stuff never gets put away and hidden away. It's promoted. But I'm trying to say, well, you know what? It's not all love and light. And
Mm-hmm.
my researchers focuses in that particular area. And
Right.
you know what? There are many people that are saying the same thing now. Lots of people. There are people coming forward that have never spoke about it before, but feel now is the time to speak about it.
Right.
So it's happening, I just
And
want to make sure that it's level ground a bit, to be
and
honest with you.
I have way more to say and ask, but really briefly, because I feel like it touches a key aspect of this, is that um, one of your just like I was watching one of your presentations, and I'm like, yes, he gets it, because you were talking about how they have the capability to pick up intention,
Oh, yeah.
and 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 I personally had an experience where I remembered something that happened to me where uh, you know a craft showed up this was dream state, by the way. It was just a very lucid dream in a neighborhood, and for whatever reason, walking back from the beach, the neighborhood looked very familiar. It looked like what I had seen in a dream. And I was walking alone, and my girlfriend was behind me at a distance, and I said out loud to myself, it'd be cool if like a craft or something showed up like in that dream. And moments later, a giant orb the size of a small school bus just appears. Was it there the whole time and I couldn't perceive it? I have no idea. And then silently, just like instant acceleration in towards the sea. And you could see when it went into, and I can't say there was metallic or a craft because there was no metal. It was just an orb
Yeah,
of light. And when it
yeah.
went into the clouds, the light actually went through the clouds. So it's, I don't know if it was, I guess, semi-physical, like maybe it had some physicality, not fully in, or at a
Yeah.
frequency where it's like just outside. So, but the intention is the thing I wanted to bring up, that the fact that they can perceive people's thoughts in many
Oh,
cases. And
yeah,
I was so
absolutely.
glad that you brought that up, because like
No,
not,
no, no. Anybody that's having an encounter, the first thing the phenomenon do is take the measure of man. It's going to have a good deep look at you, and it's going to figure out, okay, what would you perceive me to be? Okay, all right, so you're into the subjects of UFOs. Here's a UFO for you. People think that these are craft for carrying occupants. The UFO is part of the phenomenon, which can be metaphysical, so it can be left behind in a physicality for us to interact with. But when they are tied in, the NHI are tied in with this craft, which makes it sentient, it means that that craft can be metaphysical. So one minute you might see it, next minute you still see it, but the only difference is that one of them's physical, the other one isn't. And this is why you got pilots seeing them and saying, "Have you got it on radar?" And they're saying, "Yes, we've got it on radar." Oh, hang on, it's just disappeared off radar. Well, no, it's not, because it's still in front of me.
mm,
No, they've
and,
just switched it. They've just
and
switched. There's no radar or anything hitting off them because they're not physical anymore. But this is the problem. Just because we see them doesn't mean that they're not physical or physical. There we go. Because this is the problem we can't get our heads around. We assume if we see it, it's physical. No. If we see a ghost, an apparition, are they physical?
no,
Well, I've seen figures which look real humans. You could say some apparitions are. They look physical, real, just like you and me, until they walk through a wall. You think, hang on a second, this is the same mechanics that's been involved here. The very same physical mechanics that have been involved. And that's where I did my work for many years, in paranormal mechanics. And when I started going through hit after hit after hit regarding, that's the same as paranormal. It's the same for parapsychological. We have different terms for everything, but it's the same thing. In parapsychological terms, we have something called transplacement. It's hearing a voice in the head. It's part of communications. It's telepathy in UFO stuff. It's the same thing. It's just got a different name and a different rap. But people aren't cross-terming because the compartmentalization is so strong. We should never have had any compartmentalization. I said to one guy about a week ago, where do you put those cases where UFOs have been seen with Bigfoot, or Bigfoot turns into a ball of light and flies away? What would you do? And he went, I'd have to create another box. I said, there's your problem.
Yep.
You're going to create another box? There should be no boxes. This is what the problem is. And it hinders investigation and research because your conclusion isn't in the UFO box. It's in the paranormal box over there, or the cryptid box over here. And this is the problem, that people aren't putting it all together.
It can even, and I've noticed cases, and this was actually exactly like it was described, where I heard someone mention this, where everyone who was around me, even if they were at a distance, should have seen that because the sky lit up. And I was like, whoa. And I was excited because I was like, ran to my girlfriend. I'm like, hey, did you see that? And they're like, no, we didn't see anything. And I'm like, what the hell? I was like, how? Like, and it's like, there are cases where people are standing next to each other and one will see a craft or some phenomena and the other person won't see it for whatever reason. Kind of like we were talking about the measure of man.
The conscious connection causes quantum entanglement with the phenomena. So you are having your personal experience, but you don't think it's personal because someone next to you, you think they're sharing it with you. Not all the time. This could be for you. You might be the only people that see it. A large craft the size of a football field could travel across a town in Manchester, in Earlham, in 1998. It was huge. Only 6 people saw it, and 2 of them were police officers. Only 6 people, 4 people on a bus, and 2 police officers. That was it. So it doesn't make sense. But then some people I would say, have a conscious connection or some type of quantum entanglement with the phenomena. I think once you have it, though, I think it's maintained. They're pretty much in control of that. But I think, we've got to get past this. Everything is black and white. Science has told us this, but science is wrong. And we've still got a long way to go. And we're skirting quantum physics and stuff because we just don't want to get into. But we're going to have to. There's no escape from this. The only way forward is to dive into that realm of understanding. They didn't want to dive into it because it means that we've got to start emptying out what we do know of physics in this cup. We've got to throw half of it away, pour it away, and relearn. And they don't like change, science, but hey, that's what science is. It's not supposed to be right all the time. It's supposed to be developing,
Right. So, Daniel?
Yeah, well, I was just going to go off of that was with us needing to obviously expand our awareness of how the phenomenon works with our science and physics, that really kind of, it bubbles over to religion as well, because like you were saying, earlier, certain frameworks might be fully based off of what the phenomenon was manifesting as, or you have the genealogical notion of an experiencer having an encounter and then it travels out of the family, which is very much true. My mom's had encounters, and it is like I personally have questioned that of like what there's a there there's 100% of there, and so I wanted to say, like, going off of that, Steve, have you ever encountered anything, especially doing a lot of work and research over in the UK? Have you crossed any cases of like Fae encounters that people have, or anything like that, of the gentry or anything?
Yep, absolutely. It goes back a long time. I mean, even modern day accounts, they still do happen. Fae encounters, of course, it doesn't always all happen in Ireland neither. A lot of people think it does. Well, yeah, that's kind of, you can say, well, yeah. I mean, I've witnessed some crazy stuff in Ireland, and it does go on. But it's kept quiet. People in Ireland won't talk to you. You're an outsider. They won't talk to you. They won't tell you that if you go up there, there's a kiln up there, and if you actually go into that and just be there at the time the sun sets, you'll hear them talk to you. That's actually true. They do. They do talk to you, but I don't understand the language. But they do. And I've been there and I've witnessed it, and I have no idea. You know, all I can hear is voices coming from, well, it's rock. The rock. But it's beyond the rock. It's inside the rock. You know, but I just, you know, there are lots of crazy things. But yes, there's things in the UK, which I'm aware. But when you do the cross-referencing, it's basically the same phenomenon. People report the same phenomenon. It's just the mask is different. What is being delivered, or the visualization of what's being delivered, you know, and to each your own, you know, because it's become fashionable for them to fit into certain cultures, but those are getting less and less. Fae encounters are being replaced by other types of non-human intelligence, you know, because it's phasing out. Less and less people believe in the fae stuff, you know, and fairies. And the more they do it, the phenomenon evolves and starts to change and phases out. Where's all the space brothers gone, for an example?
Mm-hmm.
Where are they all? You know, well, it was very fashionable at the time and everybody thought it, but we're stuck with the ET as being primarily the grey at the moment. And that's because of the internet. You know, you go down the road and you talk to kids, 6, 7, 8 years, 10-year-olds, draw me an alien face. What do you think they're going to draw? They're going to draw an alien grey face, I assure you, because they can't. It's in their cartoons, it's in cereals, it's in food coverings, it's in movies, it's on the internet, it's everywhere. It's absorbed into the subconscious. And what does the phenomena do best? Is read itself from your subconscious to fashion itself an archetype. And that archetype is here to stay for quite some time, the alien grey. You know, because not many people think it's, you know, humanoids anymore, therefore they're not. But before the fashion of even the Nordics and the Pleiadians and all that sort of thing, before that, there were various different ones, you know, different sizes, different shapes. You got people saying, oh, there's 4 different types of ETs, you know, aliens. And I just like, there's thousands. All you got to do is look through the archive of reported documented phenomena from around the world. Thousands of variations of these things, because it's fashioning itself to what the culture is at that time. The thing is, though, we move on and that moves on, evolves with us. So hence we now have come away from the Space Brothers and into the, you know, more the ET seems to be the greys these days. Sometimes you get the tall ones, the large ones, the small ones. There's 56 variations of the grey itself. They can't even get that right, you know. But then that's without getting into your cryptid stuff, which are metaphysical, you know, a lot of this stuff. And other anomalies. Your Owlman with red eyes. Your Chupacabra with red eyes. Your Virginia alien with red eyes. You know, the Owlman, you know. The list goes on and on and on. You know, Skinwalker, Ranch, and, you know, and all sorts of different things. So the problem is that we're dealing with archetypes. We're not dealing with variations of beings here, you know, and the evidence supports now that if you can get good evidence that these are extraterrestrial traveling from various other planets, then please let's see it. Because I keep asking for it and no one can deliver. Because it doesn't exist. Even Arrow have confirmed this. You know, for the Pentagon UFO program confirmed it. Well, we know it's happening, but we've not enough evidence to support it's extraterrestrial. NASA decided to join the crew and do a search, and they concluded exactly the same thing. Yes, they know they're being filmed. Yes, the people have seen these things. But there's not enough evidence of extraterrestrial. The SETI astronomers turned around and said, in fact, space is unusually quiet. Huh, unusually quiet? Do you know how many sightings we're having currently on planet Earth on the day? And this is only going off statistics of countries that will deliver the information to us and or actually catch data. It's about one between every 8 and 15 seconds on a 24-hour basis. That's hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of UFOs seen on a 24-hour basis around planet Earth. Now, we might say, well, we're being conservative. All right, yeah, some of them are misidentifications of aircraft and some might be fake. But how many people are actually even reporting them? Probably a lot less. So it has to be highly conservative. But even when we do that, we say, well, where are they all coming from then? Because there's no superhighway passing backwards and forwards to Earth. There's stuff, a few bits going on. Yes, they're always interested in ours technology and what we're doing up there. Yeah, they have a look around. But where are they all coming from? Well, they're coming from here. You know, they're coming in through in reality and stepping in and they're stepping out and going about their business. But they're terrestrial based. It might be interdimensional, but they have a strong connection here on planet Earth, not from other planets. And that's the big problem, you know. So we've got to kind of digest and say, look, there's still people that will say, no, they've got to be extraterrestrial. Why? Because they told me they come from this planet. Well, I said, do you know how many hundreds of planets they keep saying they come from? In fact, when they first, do you know what? In fact, they said initially, we come from the moon. Yeah, no, they don't come from the moon. We realise that there's no civilization on the moon. Might be some of our stuff up there, maybe, but we haven't found any civilization on the moon. So they changed the stories to say, oh, well, we're Venusians. We come from Venus. Of course, probes going to Venus realise it's a highly poisonous environment. These are humanoids. They breathe our air and eat food like us because they've interacted with us on planet Earth. So therefore, I don't think the biological body would do well there. So the story changed again, and then it was Mars, and then and now it's this planet, and it's going further and further and further away every single time. You know, they keep telling us about problems, disasters. Oh yes, you know, we're showing images of explosions and the world, you know, volcanoes going and earthquakes and all sorts of terrible, terrible things. They come and go. They didn't happen. So why did they keep doing that? It's like a one-liner. They tell the kids, if they see kids, here's the one-liner. Oh, we're very worried about your planet Earth. You got to see if you got to do something better. You got to do something. Why tell the kids go and land on the White House lawn? You're better talking to politicians about it, you know, about ecology of planet Earth rather than 6 or 7-year-olds playing in the playground one day, you know. And they've done that to over 100 schools worldwide. Why? Because it's a ruse. It keeps going. They're not interested in saving planet Earth, or they would have done it by now, because it's getting worse by the day. It's getting to the point now we might even get to seriously not be able to reverse the problems that we've caused, because it's going to take 25 years if we press the stop button now. And you know what? It's just, I don't think it's going to happen. I think they'll rather spend more trillions and trillions of dollars looking for new planet Earth than saving old planet Earth. Are the aliens doing anything? Are these beings doing anything? No, not interested. Are they stopping wars? No, but they like to watch them. They like to watch the skirmishes and battles, but they won't stop them. You know, it's the problem for me is that, you know, when you talk about how they care and this, that, and the other, it more sounds like an agenda and an experiment.
Yes.
And like they're the caretakers, the watchers, and they're just going about looking after themselves and what they want to do. Not really about us, though, really, I don't think.
Yeah, you know, where is it? When? So, like, when are you guys going to, I don't know, like, even if it affects them and they're Earth-based, which I want to touch upon here, is like, what steps are you doing? You know, you hear about, oh, well, they went over this nuclear facility or this nuclear missile base, military base, but then testing's okay. You know, we've had, you know, hundreds of tests in the ocean, killing ocean wildlife. And let's say that they have bases under the ocean, and there's some evidence that goes towards that, and there's some theories that go towards that, you know, still debatable, but they haven't stopped any of that, and you would think that that would have an adverse effect on their living conditions, right? But, you know, this is the whole thing of moving the goalpost, which I've seen you talk about before, which you just mentioned now. Oh, we're the moon. Oh, well, they figured out we're not on the moon. Oh, so we're at Mars and Venus, and they keep moving. Now we're Alpha Centauri. Right. And then you, of course, go up upon the whole distance that it would take. Now, we're still thinking with our human mind as far as our technology. Who knows what, you know, an extraterrestrial civilization that's 100, you know, a million years ahead of us that still survived might come up with. But that's aside the point. And so when you get to that and you get to like Earth-based and how they're moving the goalpost as far as this extraterrestrial narrative, we have our own researchers here on Earth, which I won't name, that they want to bolster that extraterrestrial narrative for their own gain or their disinformation. And one of those things comes up with is metamaterials, right? So they're saying, okay, we got this piece, you got Travis Taylor or somebody like that will go out and they'll go out into Nevada desert, or they'll pick up a piece of rock, and they'll say, oh, well, we've analyzed it, and 4% isotopic ratio says that this is like not Earth material, or it's manufactured, but only an alien civilization could do this, and that tries to bolster their extraterrestrial hypothesis. So, but when you look at it, because I know that you've talked about terahertz frequencies interacting with like aluminum and stuff like that, and then some of what we correlate with actually witnessing, okay, even though what we see might not actually be its form, what we record might not actually be its form, right? But there's still some things that research has shown that aluminum with like frequencies, RF, etc., can have an effect on these metamaterials that people are actually witnessing. Correct?
Well, we would have never known. Yeah, you're absolutely right, John. The thing is, it's like the best way I can describe it is going to the bar and making up your own cocktail. I mean, just by look, I tell you what, let's add a bit of this and add a bit of that. Make me own. I'm going to make my own cocktail. Da, 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 da. And I taste it, and it's absolutely wow. People want it all the time. That's what metamaterial analysis is. Because when we first found these things and looked at what they consist of, because we know exactly what they consist of, when we put them under micron and telescopes and atomic analysis, we can see break down what they're made of. We know exactly what they're made of. But we've never dreamed to put them together. That's what the scientists say. Well, I just never thought of putting that with that. Who knows? And all of the things, adding these things together creates magic. Creates things that they would never experience. Certain frequencies are being applied to make them lose weight or even gain weight, 70 times more, actually, more weight than the value is. So it's weight fluctuation, light fluctuation. You can get from levitation to cloaking and all sorts of different things. This goes back with the use of what you might refer to as monatomic powder as well, or the real stuff. I'm not talking about the stuff you can just go and buy on eBay, the proper stuff, But yeah, there's elements of that can be, it's manufactured that can be affected by terahertz frequency, where it loses 43% of its visualization. Where's it phasing to? Nobody really knows, but once you take the terahertz frequency back, it manifests again. So, and I know about, levitation, because it was, when they first created it, it was placed into stone bowls, because to vaporize gold, you need a tremendous amount of heat, up to nearly 6,000 degrees. We can't just stick it. It's got to be in an industrial oven. So what do you put the gold in that doesn't melt? We have to use a special stone, which is volcanic stone bowl, to put it in. And they're heavy. I don't know if you've ever really heavy condensed these things. But when it came out, when it turned vaporized, it literally they just could pick it up with a finger. Because the stuff was in contact with the bowl, and the bowl became affected by weightlessness. So they realised that these applications can be used, as well as, because really what you're generating there is alchemy. It's ancient alchemy, which was used many, many years back, and this is how they knew about it. But in modern day, it's going to be weaponized. It's going to be added into the skin of things, nanotech skins, which have got different layers of bismuth and magnesium and silver oxide and all sorts of different things to create different things. And there's lots of wonderful little toys you can create with it. When we talk about UFO metamaterials and isotopic ratio differences, well, the first time I heard of isotopic differentials was not in UFO metamaterials. It was, in fact, an alien implant, alleged alien implant. The data was incorrect. In fact, the person who was in charge of that case, who didn't release the information, confirmed with me, though that bit's not true. That's been added. So the whole point of adding that 4% isotopic differential on the alien implant was to make people say, as a certainty, oh, it's alien. It's extraterrestrial in origin. Well, you know what? You can take things up into space under zero gravity, and you can change things where you will note an isotopic differential, and you don't have to be in another planet to do that. How long have these experiments been going on? Probably for the last 15 years. I know that's actually taking place on the International Space Station, as well as biological tests on plants and stuff under zero gravity and, just manipulation. So, yeah, I need to find something where, okay, well, this is extraterrestrial and there's no way we can manufacture an isotopic differential range, but we can. And the next thing I find is in a report on one of these pieces of a UFO crash, apparently. And it was all talking about 4% isotopic differential. And I thought, why 4?
Right.
Why is that 4? And that's 4. That's 20 odd years difference between the two of these reports. But when it got released officially from the lab report was different. The lab report said they found zero, anything extraterrestrial. Everything consisted of what can be found terrestrially, even the aluminium. Now, the aluminium, the problem is aluminium's everywhere on planet Earth, 25 miles down from the surface of Earth, all over the Earth. It's very abundant, but you won't get it in the purities of 97, 98%. It just doesn't exist. But it can be if we machine it, and we have to industrialize it to get it, but it can be. A lot of these things are made from that specialized high purity aluminum. And the thing is, they might say, well, you know what, which just doesn't exist. Well, yeah, it doesn't exist in that purity, but it doesn't mean it can't be manufactured. So it is a play on words and lots of different things that are going on. I haven't settled comfortably at saying I've found anything to say extraterrestrial. You might say, okay, well, some of these things, alien implants, have been meteoric. But we have meteors. We have Martian meteors, we can find them. You've got to go has gone to Antarctica. There's loads of them. They stick out like a sore thumb. It's a big black thing in the middle of the white snow. You can't miss it.
I got a piece in my house. I got a piece in my house. Yeah.
Exactly. Now, if that was to be found under the skin, they'd say it's an alien implant, okay, because it's extraterrestrial. Well, yeah. All right. Okay. Initially, yes, it's extraterrestrial. It doesn't mean that it wasn't and didn't become terrestrial, though, does it? So, again, we still have a problem. And I'm just going round and round at the moment and saying, well, I need better data to confirm and conclude. And I haven't got it. Most of the things that are coming forward, there's two different stories. You've got the science labs report saying, well, no, it's all terrestrial based. But the people that are making the documentary turn around and say, oh, we got the report and this is what's in it. And it's 4% isotopic differentials and da-da-da-da. In fact, the science report that came from the lab contradicts it. So is it just because they wanted to sell a documentary and spin a story? Because the science lab is saying, oh, no, everything was terrestrial based. Might be odd to find, but it can be manufactured. This is where the problems that we have. I don't think, we do have technologies which we've got. None of these things, the only time these things are going to crash is if we take them down. If we've got some wonderful toys out there to fire a masonry weapon at it or some EMP or whatever to bring the damn thing down, it doesn't happen very often. Most of them are being gifted. How do I know this? Because some of these objects have been left unmanned, empty, outside military bases. There you go, guys. It's yours. Yeah. Because they want us to have the tech. They want us to, unfortunately, it's secret and being weaponized. Not all of us get a chance to have this technology in our lives. It's being gifted, gifting fields, they call them, at the high levels, and it's still going on today. But you can make a lot of money. You can manufacture stuff from this stuff and sell it on NASCAR. You'll get about 30 million, 40 million for it, and you'll be very rich and you'll be very happy. And they're happy to do that. Weaponize it, get rich, keep it from the public. That's the world we live in regarding this phenomenon. But the phenomenon's been gifting for a very, very long time. Since ancient times.
And I won't even touch on the fact that that's probably also through ritualistic practices and stuff like that, to which bring this up. That's a whole other cornucopia of information. But one last thing I kind of wanted to stick on. This is the way I'm thinking of it. And Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, or you think just that every indication points that I'm being wrong about this, is that I understand what you're saying, and I'm thinking this doesn't mean that it's not the phenomena that's necessarily putting in the implants or the phenomena that's flying the craft, the physical craft or whatever in Earth's atmosphere or landing on the ground, any of the interactions between the metamaterials. Because my feeling is this, like let's take the implant, for example, that's usually surrounded in keratin, by the way, so our body does not reject that, correct?
Yes.
Is that even if it's not meteoritic, a meteor fragment, okay? But all of these minerals are of the Earth, okay? So rejection, interaction, movement, whatever, just the way that it can actually exist, no pun intended, but exist within our, again, no pun intended, reality, is because it's still Earth-based, right? So the human body's not going to be rejecting, this keratin-infused implant because it is of Earth minerals. We are of the Earth. It is of Earth minerals. And so rejection is not going to really happen,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Whereas if it was extraterrestrial, our body would be like, get this the hell out of me, and cause illness, death, possibly.
Yeah. I mean, look, even if it was some type of, alien beings from another planet and they wanted to put an implant in us, they'd have a sit down one day and they go, do you know what's the best implant? We need to use something from their Earth. That's what they're going to say. They're not going to turn around and say, let's something which is so foreign to the body that the body's going to react so well, it's going to attack it immediately. It's going to cause problems, and problems lead to identification and discovery. We don't want that. Of course they are. Even if they were aliens from another planet, they'd do that. So I don't really know what people expect. But you are right about ritualistic practice. I hear all the time, these people, I don't want to hear another whistleblower. I'm tired of hearing whistleblowers. I know the phenomena exists. I don't need to be told that some guy working somewhere else has seen something or heard something. That's not disclosure. It's no disclosure, is it? We're never going to get it. They'll never give it us. We'll skirt around the outside and try and keep us happy like they did with Project Blue Book. But at the end of the day, you got people coming forward saying, well, you know what? I know because I've seen NHI. I've seen their crafts. Well, big deal, so have I, but I'm not this big politician guy. I'm just Average Joe Blogs. And I'm not the only one. There are probably hundreds of thousands of people out there who can also turn around to the TV screen and say, well, you're not the only one, I have as well. So big deal, So at the end of the day, are we getting any closer? No, but ritualistic practice does work. We've done experiments. We've communicated with NHI through the process of ritualistic practice and invocation to incarnation. It works. You can reach it by seance, because you'd have to ask the biggest question in the world. What are UFOs, smaller ones, and beings of non-human intelligence turning up in a seance? What the hell? And that is when the clues start coming, because that is a process. A seance is a ritualistic practice to some degree. When you go to church, it's all a ritualistic practices. But there are certain ones that you can use methodically to invoke phenomena to interact with you, but it's hammering at the door and it gets their attention. They don't really like it, and there's no safety protocols in that, so you get a bit of a whiplash sometimes from them. It's not always, they don't like it sometimes, but there are safer methods. But it takes up to 2 years, 3 years sometimes to get to that level. And once you do get NHI communications, it's not like a seance. They're on the phone there. It's like you can go and leave it for 3 weeks, walk back, and they're straight there. It's like off, like they're right there on the phone waiting for you. It's not like a seance. People don't understand when you're dealing with NHI, even through seance, as soon as you get to NHI, you don't have no control on that seance. You can't close it down. You're not in control anymore. You just lost your circle, and it's down to them then, and that's why certain experiments like the skull experiment in the UK and many others got closed down, because they lost control to NHI. And it became problematic for them, following them back home and stuff. So at the end of the day, there are ways that people can. Now, if I know this, the governments know. And they know how to tap the source. And they'll never tell us that, because they don't want to. How can you disclose that? You'll never disclose that. Never.
One of the things that I found really fascinating, and you were the only person who touched upon it, but was infrasound and how they display in a lot of cases this infrasound where the crickets noise at night or whatever will just go silent. And one of the interesting properties of infrasound is you can actually use it to put out fires, which is
You
to,
can.
which
Yeah.
is why we don't use it. I don't know. We still use it.
It's ridiculous, isn't it? When you can
Right.
walk up to a pan on fire and press a button, it just turns it off.
Yeah.
It's absolutely crazy what sound infrasound can do. The thing is, the infrasonics, it's happening all over the world. In various cases, people directly would think it's just UFO related or UAP related, but it's not. It's the cryptic world, Bigfoot, Dogman. People are walking along and all of a sudden, vroom, there's no sounds. The birds have gone. What's going on here? They've just entered like a dead zone of nothingness. And then they have the experience. Lots of birds and insects and things can hear infrasonics. When they hear infrasonic, it's a warning system. It's a mechanism. They fall quiet. It's a safety process like crickets do, maybe even birds. There's all sorts of things taking place. But just that alone is emphasized in the UAP. Is emphasized in the cryptid, because I said earlier about joining cryptid phenomena to it. You talk about dogman experiences, which do happen. There's plentiful in the US as there is in the UK and other places, but they don't seem to attack physically. It's about scaring the hell out of you. That's what it wants to do. It'll even give chase, but if you fall over and it stands above you growling and snarling, it will run away. Because the game is up, I can't make you any more scared than you actually are. And this is what they do. Now, what else does that? It's a fear-feeding parasite. It's poltergeist phenomenon, except the difference is this is a physical manifestation of it. But it's utilizing parasitic fear generated from you. But once you can't go past that, the game's up.
I've had an experience exactly what you described, and the weird thing was I can't even tell you what I was afraid of. It was almost like it was putting fear into me, and it was just coming out, and I couldn't stop it. I'm like, what the hell is going on?
It's not a nice experience. It's dread to the core. I know, but I think they induce that on purpose. Because I wouldn't, most of the time I'm usually okay. I mean, after 41 years, I've sat in everywhere, every place where somebody, there's a demon down in that cellar, don't go to, I'll go and sit down there. Nothing will happen. I'll get bored, start looking for stuff on my phone to do, but at the end of the day, there are lots of people saying all these things that, it's all about fear and stuff, but some of it is. And fear-driven phenomena is induced, and I've witnessed some stuff, and I've witnessed crazy stuff, but I've not been fear-induced. I've had, don't get me wrong, I'm not stupid. I've had some fear with some things, but not that type of fear induction. And I've had things where it's done that fear induction because I know I should not feel as bad as I am.
Right. Exactly. That's the only way I can put it.
Something else is doing that. Yeah.
Daniel?
So we were talking about the kind of implants and stuff earlier. Steve, have you heard of Whitley Strieber's case where he has like the implant in his ear?
Well, yeah, my dad, yeah.
Right. Yeah, I was just curious of what your thoughts were, because we're talking kind of about the overall, like, what's the larger picture we're actually looking at? And one instance of his that it kind of stuck in my mind was when he had apparently the implant put in, he was paralyzed in his house, and then he said he remembers hearing a man and a woman say, "We got a code red" or something, and they come in, and he's like, or at least he perceived was they were people, they were almost agents or something. And then he was later approached by Men in Black, and they said that this implant was potentially from this deceased individual. But yeah, it was such a strange thing of like, got me questioning, like, how far does this actually go? And is it straight just the phenomenon NHI, or are there the human element mixed in with it? And I just wanted to know if you've come across anything that points towards that data, or anything in your research over the decades.
Well, Whitley's a good friend of mine. I mean, he was a couple of years ago. He was at my office here in the UK, and we did some stuff together. And I've seen it and I've felt it. It's behind his ear. when it's there, because it does move, it will move, basically go deeper in, even when times when he wanted to extract it, but it was not going to happen. That in regarding his experiences, Whitley is a bit confused about his experiences, to be honest. Though that, yes, initially he was thinking they were extraterrestrial. He's not 100% sure that they are. There are other aspects of phenomena that's taking place in his life, which you would definitely refer to it as more paranormal or poltergeist type stuff. So where's the bearing and connection there? Well, there is obviously connections there, which I was talking to Whitley about. But he's got to a point now where he'd rather not be forced to show his hand to say, yes, I definitely think these are extraterrestrial. Times have changed since the days of communion, Back then you would expect that, it's understandable. But as time's gone on, he's learned a lot more, and the various different types of experiences that he's had. But he believes he's being monitored as well. And maybe, sometimes, some people are involved. But at the end of the day, when you talk about Men in Black, are they government Men in Black or the real phenomena of Men in Black?
Right.
More likely nowadays, the government Men in Black, as for the phenomena, is usually different. But they would have a keen interest in anybody who's got the finger on the pulse. And yes, he's a long time experiencer. And he's been followed and he's probably been watched and stuff. But at the end of the day, the phenomena can manifest human figures, especially at time of traumatic incidents. If you suddenly have to go under some form of surgery or do something, and the ETs need to do something, these beings need to do something, they'll manifest a human there just to calm it down. There's human figures stood behind the screen at the Pascagoula UFO incident. How often do you hear about that? You don't. You could read 1,001 things on the Pascagoula incident, but they won't talk about that. Why? I don't know why. It's just as important that there were these claw-shaped aliens, or whatever these things were, which looked like something came out of Doctor Who, but it's ridiculous. But at the end of it does. But that's what they come up. They come up with claw hands like crab hands. Mm-hmm. What were they doing? Crab fishing. They were crab fishing.
Yeah, crazy, isn't it?
They're thinking, they just got it from them. They got crab hands. I mean, what the hell? I mean, you should be able to put two and two together there. But then there were human beings stood behind a screen, like watching them. Were they really human beings there, or just they manifest as human beings to just bring it down a little bit, calm you down? They can do that. Travis Walton incident,
Mm-hmm.
Oh, don't deal with the greys, they're the bad guys. What you want to deal with is the good guys. Well, hang on, wasn't Travis Walton experiencing both? Oh, they must be working together. Really? Do you not think that he actually jumped up, went and swiping at these little horrible little things, which in Brazil they call them little demons, by the way, and he was swiping at these things. They didn't know what to do physicality wise. There's nothing to him. So next minute they run out the room, they come back. Or next minute, there's a lovely human who's going to deal with the situation for you. Couldn't they have just changed the perception to get it to deal with the situation and get Travis off the ship as soon as possible and dump him by the roadside? He didn't even get a chance to get all his clothes, the poor guy. But do you know what? Those things do happen, and even Travis still has odd experiences. I was on a road trip with him through the US, and we were being followed down the highway by UFO. We stopped 3 times, and it stopped. The car was being followed. It's like literally just a few hundred feet above us, following us down the freeway 3 times. We stopped and looked at this thing. And I said to him jokingly, I said, Travis, it might be 2 for the price of 1 these days. I'm sure Whitley's the same. Whitley has the same experiences.
Yeah. Well, it's one thing I really appreciated about Whitley Strieber, and he was on our show, which was very gracious of him. I know he's always busy doing stuff, but he's never reached the conclusion. He's never wanted to pigeon himself into like a certain corner where people are able to be like, oh well, see, it's just space aliens over, because he's like, we don't know, we truly don't. And I think that's it's been really great to have people of that caliber like yourself, Steve, of being able to stay in that middle area of like, okay, what does the data reflect? And one thing I remember Whitley sharing, it was one on his Unknown Country, but he was talking about the what was it, Jake Barber incident, right, with the Skywatch group, and he was saying like, they're messing with you guys. He's like, you have no idea what the intentions are and everything else. And I thought it was a really interesting conversation, because he's like, he's been always about, we have to better understand what we're interacting with, so that if we are to move forward with the phenomenon, we can have a more educational perspective of what the relationship is right now and what it could potentially be, and for us to have our own autonomy as well in that relationship. And so I think with looking at the data, like you, Nathaniel, and others that are trying to take this fully seriously, and that's another angle that I really appreciated listening. And you and Nathaniel were talking in one of your episodes. He was saying like he was getting pushback from the church, and he is innately a demonologist, but he's like, I gotta go with the data where it points, and I can't really let you guys tell me what it is because it's just not reflecting that. And so I think having that ongoing conversation is going to help us get to a greater understanding of what it is in reality. And again, maybe it won't happen in our lifetime, but it's contributing to that research.
Yeah, there's a lot that happens. I mean, at the Vatican level, I mean, thank God for Diana Pasulka. She's a good friend, and when she wrote American Cosmic, and she was still some things she didn't put in that book, so they'll come out eventually. But when she looked at the source material at the Vatican, and this was not a loving experience that nuns and monks and priests were having. These balls of light would travel down hallways, take significant turns left and right to go through a strategic way to get through into a person's room to have an experience. That person didn't have a love and light experience. When they write it in their own diaries, it was terrifying, and things got, well, when they say they got thrusted up their entrails, when that's what exactly the words they put, that's not a nice experience, But these beings, these small beings at 3 foot, were passed off as cupids and cherubs. In fact, they actually moralized the incident with statues and drawings and images and paintings of these nuns and priests and monks, but they put a cherub in it. And the thing that was thrusted up, which was some type of instrument, they turns to cherub's dart.
Arrow.
Or Cupid's arrow. It's the same thing. Cupid's arrow and cherub's dart, same thing. But what they did then is, as years progressed, they changed the statues to be represented by a dove or a partridge. So what are they saying is that whatever visited her was the Holy Spirit, because that's what the Holy Spirit, visualization of the Holy Spirit, is supposed to be, dove or partridge. So you're kind of going, what's going on here, So the Vatican have done a good job at sort of going their own direction and utilizing these, as some type of biblical experience, religious experience, when in fact, no, it wasn't, So, and the good thing is that we are finding out more and more about that nowadays. So yeah, there's a lot of this stuff. It's been going on a long, long time. But you know what you've got to consider when we want to talk about archetypes is that where did the devil come from? Well, the devil wasn't really introduced to the Bible, you got the fallen ones, you got Lucifer, but where's the devil? The devil got added to it. It's a control mechanism of Christianity, unfortunately, and I say that as being a Christian myself. Yep. But it's a mess, and our God had bad days. It smite people. According to the Bible, is the Bible wrong? Because that's apparently what they're selling us. He said, well, you know what? He wants sacrifice. You got to sacrifice now. You got to go and kill your prize bull. You got to go and kill your goat. Mm-hmm. You've got to do horrific things to these animals because I want 7 drops of blood dropped onto the Ark of the Covenant for me to manifest. Right. The mercy seat and all that. Do you know what? People will just completely ignore this stuff and go, oh, no, our God's not like all the other gods like the Aztecs and Incas, which all wanted blood sacrifice. So it's the same thing. It's all about intent. Blood's blood intent. Blood worship is the most powerful all intent. That's why Jack Parsons had to take a vial of his own blood to donate it in the Mojave Desert when he got the coordinates to go and do his ritualistic practice there with Ron Hubbard. Oh, he got his stuff. He got what he wanted, but they got his blood. You know?
Yeah. And that's
It's
where
all
the
there.
whole
Blood-
sign the document in your own blood kind of comes from, that metaphor.
That's where the
Right.
story comes from. Yeah,
Yep.
that's where the story comes from. Yeah. Making a pact with the devil, they thought. You know, but it predates the devil. This stuff predates angels. I mean, really weren't round the scene until Ezekiel days, you know, but it predates all that, you know. So all this has been fashioned around. So NHI have got its footprint and infiltration in every single religion on this planet, and it utilizes it against us when it wants to. You know, if it wants to find something, it will manifest as. I don't know if you noticed, but the Vatican in November 2024, it's literally a month or so ago, released a document literally about this problem. And they're basically, if you read between the lines, they're saying we have to this is a warning, worldwide warning, that now the phenomena they are saying, which it's been doing for a long time, we just got around to saying it, is masking itself as biblical or religious connotation. Be aware. That's what it's saying in this document. It's there telling us.
Wow.
One of the things.
Go ahead, Chris.
Oh no, I was just gonna say one of the things I wanted to say. Big Doctor Who fan, by the way, but this is more of a statement. There have been reports of these crafts, like you said, being like gifted, and some of these craft they would walk in and it's bigger on the inside, which is like more dimensional type stuff. But one of the questions I want to ask you is that it seems like nowadays, especially like just recently, the U.S. just had, and I'm going to preface this by saying that I don't think that the government is going to come out and tell the truth and be like, oh, by the way, we've lied to you and this is the truth now, or any of this stuff. I don't think that's the case whatsoever. But there seems to be some angle or agenda, if you will. You know, they had a big documentary with over 34 representatives coming out and basically saying that this is real. And
Are you
there's just
on about age of disclosure?
yes, and
Okay.
and it's just like there's this push for like awareness, and it's already been growing. I think without them, like, what do you think is happening? Because now it's like getting to the point where more and more people are being more open about it. It's being less hush hush, and it's okay. It's less taboo to talk about it. Whether for good or for ill, but like, you know, either way.
It was a good effort, Age of Disclosure. I watched it and then realised after watching it a second time that there was nothing in it.
Right.
I don't know. You got to watch it a couple of times to realise all you've got is other guys now talking about, yes, we think this is happening or that is happening. Okay, right. Well, we could pretty much. You spend 2 days having a look around the internet, you'll come to the same conclusion. You don't need a documentary to tell you that. At the end of the day, though, what I am aware of is what didn't go in the documentary. And there's no way they were going to put some of that dark stuff in there. Absolutely. Especially now when you've got documentation, US military documents that are referencing two things. One is occult physics and the second is spiritual technology. What the hell is that?
Mm-hmm.
This is what they're referencing. What is going on? And they will not get anywhere. They won't get into the legacy program. They got no chance. They don't have a need to know. You know,
Yeah,
and
that's why I'm wondering. That's why I'm like wondering. I'm like, what are they trying to do here? Because it's like you're opening up a can of worms that it's just like it's just very surface level what you're sharing, but like to get to the meat of it, like everything we were discussing today,
it's the best. It's the best in the narrative,
right?
For that documentary, but we don't want narrative anymore because
Yeah.
the narrative's wrong. We need something to come against it. There's a documentary that's coming out in Brazil on the 12th of January. And it's done by a researcher called Ronnie Verrett. Now, Ronnie is aware of he did the research himself of the incidents that were taking place just prior to the Virginia case. And it involved ritualistic practice and it involved the manifestation of a craft rising from the ground. And what was under the ground was the ritualistic chamber to a massive location where they were conducting this type of stuff over a period of time. When these things were found, the whole villagers, they're pretty clued up, you know, about what goes on. They're calling them little devils. Little devils descended upon Virginia. Of course, it's got its own slant now, and oh yes, there was a craft and this, that, and the other, and it's got to be aliens and things. There's another story there behind it all. And there's a documentary coming out on the 12th of this month
What's it called?
on the leading Brazilian. It's the anniversary of the Virginia case.
Hmm.
It's called the Dark Truth of UFOs, Money, Power, and Rituals.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Well, definitely gonna have to check that out.
It's going to be very, very interesting because you're going to realize not all is known here. There's a predecessor to the phenomenon that's taking place. This is really important. Do you think that's the only creature of that type that's been seen in Brazil? No,
No.
there are others. But people just think it's this kind of one-off event. And I know James, and he's a good friend of mine, but he won't go down that narrative for sure. Absolutely, he's got enough trying to locate the video what the doctors had and seen. So, but yeah, there's lots of things and clues to what is going on and how phenomena can be invoked, and it can be invoked. If you go CE5, what's a CE5? You go in a
Ritual.
or ice. And it will manifest. It's no different than having 5 mediums round a seance table or 5 meditators sat on a beach in a group wanting to see an object in the sky. It's the same process.
Intention.
No, I know that you and I'm sorry. Yeah, I know that you and Nathaniel have mentioned about how some viewers and some people that follow you both will be like, "Hey, can you tell us the steps, Steve? Because we really want to get down in here and we really want to talk to the NHI." And I know that the internet is full of people that want to do that, and I can understand that. But don't ever go into anything unprepared and just willy-nilly. And it's not like you could just pick up a recipe book on how to make, a Polish dish or a German dish and just follow the instructions by adding a little bit of salt. You could do a whole ring of salt around this thing, and it's still not going to it's not going to do you any good. So, but it's just like Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard and all those others that were part of the space program or developed their own religion about aliens. They used sigils, right? Now, of course, I learned this all from researchers from yourself and such, but I always had this inclination that that's what was going on. These ritualistic practices, these sigils, spells, incantations, you name it, rituals, blood rituals. And then the question is always, well, I don't really think it was Jack Parsons per se that came up with this formula, but just like a craft being sitting on a military base saying, hey, for free to the military, the NHI themselves are providing the blueprint or the sigils and the ritualistic practice to the practitioner in exchange for that money, wealth, fame, power, etc. Right? And that is still being used today. And I know a lot of people don't realize this when it comes to NASA's dates of launch, times of launch, where the president of the United States, if he's will be sitting at this time, constellations, all that jazz. And then using actual sigilization within, like, let's say, the rockets and the crafts themselves, right? Yeah. So this is very deep stuff that, if I'm not saying people don't do it. That's not my call. I'm not in control of people's lives, right? I do my own research, and I've fiddled around with things too, spirit rods, spirit box, etc. I mean, if I don't protect myself, if I don't go through the right ways, I'm putting myself in that danger zone, if there is one. So I'm not saying people don't do it, but don't go into anything willy-nilly. I mean, it's still claimed people like Jack Parsons. It still claims others when they're done. And they'll say, hey, you can have the power. And one more thing, I'm sorry, I'm going to get off my soapbox here, Steve, and I just want your thoughts about all this stuff when I conclude this, is that they'll trick these entities, not saying all are bad, but in this situation, through summoning and ritual, they'll trick the practitioner to think that there is actually a possibility for the practitioner to control them. And that will feed them. And what I want to say is this. For me and my fiance, that's verified because during a spirit box session in which I have a recording of, The voice says it's male, it's deep, but you can make it out. Now, whether it's using electronics to sound like a voice or an actual voice, I'm not sure of yet, but I'm going through that. It says, which we didn't hear it until upon re-listening, you are powerless. You thought you were the one. Now, I know what it was, at least I think I know what it was trying to do. It was trying to say, oh, well, you think you're special, but I can make you special. I can give you the power. And when we heard that, we both kind of chuckled and said, no, I don't think so. We're not falling for that ruse, right? And that's the same thing it tries to do with these practitioners. It says, hey, I can give you the power to do these things.
Oh, yeah.
Feeds into the
Yeah,
ego.
you can do. That does happen. And you know what? Some people fall foul to it and say, yes, I want it then. It comes at a cost, though, and you've got to pay homage and worship and all sorts of things. But, some of the big faculties and establishments and even NASA, are part of that, secretive ceremonial launches with sigils on. I mean, you can take a crucifix, a wooden one, for an example, buy a wooden crucifix, right, representing Christianity, and you can sigilize that, where it means that it's absolutely does nothing because it's empowered by something else. Sigils do carry power. There's power in words, and there's power in frequencies, and there's power in symbols. But they don't want to tell you that. They think it's just a bit of ink to paper or things like that. No, it's not. I've got sigils that have appeared on abductees' windows on the outside of the vehicles in the morning because it's cold and they go out there and it's on the car, on the outside. Very technical sigils, seals. These things are appearing on people's bodies. They're appearing on the thing is that some of them don't even know that because they're there in the black light. And you have to get your partner to get a black light and black light you, basically, because sometimes they can be found just utilizing a black light across the skin because sometimes they like to hide it out of visual range, And then if that's not the case, then sometimes, as Nathaniel has said, they've had it on the inside of your mouth, on the bottom of your eyelid, inside your body. So they can do things like that if they really want to. Sigilization is it's like changing the diathermic reaction within you, which can be traced anywhere. People can't run away from this phenomena because, you're quantum anchored with it because they've allowed it to be quantum anchored with it. It's so very, very difficult to explain to people the depth of what this phenomena can do. And I say phenomena because it is phenomena. I mean, people will say, well, you know what, why not? It's a phenomena if you're talking about UFOs. I say, no, we're not, because it's all part and parcel.
Yeah.
In fact, when some of the best artificial intelligence computers some years ago, about 4 or 5 years ago, called the CRS system, put together, it took 3 years to put all the data in the computers, and they put everything in, all about poltergeists, all about crop circles and UFOs and the paranormal, hauntology, you name it, everything. And then basically wanted to ask, what's it all about? Basically, that sort of thing. And one day after doing all that, they pressed the button, see what was going to come out, and expecting reams and reams of paper to come flying out of all this stuff. Just 1 page and 2 paragraphs. The first paragraph said that the source was responsible for all of it because the computer program saw so much connectivity between all these various different phenomena, including the sighting and visions and miracles of Virgin Mary, and the manifestations of that, including all the biblical stuff. It said the evidence supports a source of the phenomena. So there's a source, it believes, is responsible for all, doing different things and different agendas. It's a huge, tremendous, amazing mechanism of deliverance, which has been governed by a source. That's what it said. The second paragraph was, here's the tricky bit, is that the source can construct, the source can make these physiological constructs I'm a physiological construct, you're physiological constructs. What's a physiological? Everything. In other words, it can create. If that means it can create, it's coming from a not created process, an uncreated process to creation, from uncreation to creation. That's what it's doing. It can do that. So that's manifestation. That's control over our physicality of our reality. If the source can do this, it has godly power. Just the same as with Scandinavian ETs walking across water from 1997. No different than other ones around the world. Oh, hang on, didn't Jesus walk across the water? You know, it doesn't matter that they have godly abilities. If angels are fallen angels, they're angels. They've got the same powers. Angels and fallen angels got the same thing. You know, it's just one's there and one's not. Oh, that's a fallen one, so that's the only difference, is it? Well, yeah. You know, they're not decided to be in a different group. That's all. So at the end of the day, can't kid ourselves that these have this godly power. And once you start realizing that phenomena has godly power and has had godly power since the beginning of all religions, then what are the gods? You know, and I'm Christian, do you know? But I say religion lies in here. As church is a group of individuals. It's sharing. All it is about conscious connection about people. We have a bit of clout when we're consciously together in a group. A church is not a building; it's a group of people, and religion lies in here, and the communication of consciousness between us. We miss the point. But how much are we misinterpreting? Right. Because the phenomena predates all the gods. There were no gods when the phenomena was around, so. You know, you've got to consider it's dealing with different people and different cultures and spiritual backgrounds all over the world, and every one of them have got their own gods, which want their own thing and do their own thing, do the same thing, but just a different face.
One of the things that you mentioned too, just for the audience watching, with the symbols and stuff, and I honestly believe that that's real. I've been doing some of my own research, and I don't know if you've heard of him, Steve, but I think Dr. Abraham Karim, Egyptian name. And in biogeometry and how it works, and you can use it even to like agriculture and farming and stuff like that, and it's proven to work, which is crazy. And also deals with sacred geometry in certain spaces like churches or pyramids.
Well, that goes back to your Freemasonry. Do you know what ritualistic practice is hidden in many different ways, and one of them is through orchestras, you know, through architectural geometry. So that is your Freemasons. Your Freemasons are doing that thing. I've got secret videos of ritualistic rites that are being performed by the Freemasons. I know what they do, you know, and they're still doing it today. But they believe that it's another form of ritualistic practice, but it's their version of it. It's like divination, you know. You can go, I don't know how many, palm reading, you know, tarot cards, crystal ball. There are loads and there are hundreds of different forms of divination, but they're all tapping the same source. That's all these ritualistic practices are. If you can use, I've used. It's very difficult using angel speech, you know, from the John Dee days. But yes, I can use it. It's very geometric laid out, but it's a pain in the backside to do because it takes hours. It is probably one of the hardest forms of ritualistic practices. It works. Oh, by God, it works. Yes. Gets attention very, very fast, but it takes you so much to actually perform it. I'd rather use, you know, some form of maybe old Babylonian stuff and things, but you've got to be careful because when you get into that and scientists start doing this sort of stuff, when things start to happen, it's exciting. Oh yeah, to see things manifest before your eyes and interact with you. You want to do it. Hey, you want to do it 3-4 times a day. It's fascinating. You want it, you know. Don't realize though, as after the monthly meeting, is how many of us are having problems at home because we overindulged ourselves. The science guys, we did not write a protocol. We did not expect this.
Can't turn it off.
Skin. It gets under your skin, this phenomenon. It draws you in. Oh, I'll give you excitement. But what it's doing is getting under your skin. You take it back home to the kids. It's no good. You can't take this phenomenon home to meet your parents. You don't want that. You really don't.
There is actually I mentioned the dowsing rods thing earlier, and actually there's this one girl who has her whole channel just based on the dowsing rods, And normally it's positive messages. She's asking questions. Do ETs exist? It's like, yes. And it's answering all these questions. And in one particular case, and I was like, oh, there it is. She's trying to do a session and it's messing with her. Like things, you can hear stuff falling in the room.
Got to ignore it.
The light
Yeah.
starts like flickering and she's just like, oh, like, I don't know who's here. Like, I don't know what I'm actually interacting with.
Yeah. You got to
Well-
completely. They'll do all that to draw your attention to get you away.
Occult tools, like you said, they're all tapping in from the same source. And I'll tell you what, it's like doing the rods and doing the spirit box. And I've just so happened to be wearing something I got years ago, a Ouija board shirt, just, because I'm kind of a gothic guy, right? I like the gothic stuff and the occult. And so the rods one goes to A, right? And then the other one, and I'm like, what's going on here? And then another, it'll say here, and then it's spelled out Ouija on my shirt. And I'm like, you want us to get the Ouija board? And it's, yes. So I'm like, okay. So, of course, Melissa's got one. I got it for Christmas a long time ago, handmade. And it starts spelling out things that it wants to say. Like, hi there, I'm here. And I'm like, okay, see, I never brought up the Ouija board. Hey, you want to connect through the Ouija board? It's just always you want to answer rods or spirit box. And it's saying, oh, no, I know you got a Ouija board. Why don't you go grab that? And we can communicate 3 ways now, right? We can communicate 4 ways now, whatever tools that you have that are tapping into that same source. And I just want to kind of say this to the viewer. And, of course, you can all disagree with me, but I think this is pretty solid. And I'm not meaning to say it to scare people, but you are easily observed by the phenomena once you start making contact with it. You have opened the door. Again, not to touch on my soul experience or my soul abduction experience, in which I'll make a video in the future, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But one of the traits that happened during that experience is that I heard warped trance music, and we like to listen to trance music in this house. And so the phenomena knew that. And it was trying to get my attention during that event and maybe try to call me. I don't know what the intention was, but to mimic that, because it knew that that's what I liked.
Yeah.
See, and so it's able to observe and not just read your intent, right? Which is a huge thing, but it's also able to observe your likes, your dislikes, and it'll find out everything about you. Okay. And it's writing the rules, and every once in a while we could try to trick it, right? And I know you've done, episodes about that where you kind of just do the opposite of what it might expect for you to do to try to see results. And we had David Eckert before that does the same thing, but really it writes the rule books a lot of times, and it doesn't tell us the rules. So how do we follow it? Except they're always, like, as you've said before, kind of 1 or 2 steps ahead of us at all times.
At all times. I mean, when we had eventually, after 2.5 years, achieved communication with non-human intelligence, you've got to go through and I'll go spirit world, communications, in quotes, and through the poltergeist stuff, and you've got to ignore everything. You've got to ignore everything that's going on around you. And just focus on communications with things not of our realm or reality. Don't call them angels. Don't call them aliens. Just that's all you need to do. Eventually, if you're lucky enough, especially if you're using the right people, because, we always wanted to introduce, big scientists and stuff to come to the sessions, but phenomena won't choose them. And I mean, it's not down to us. It's down to the phenomenon. It wants to choose people. It wants to choose observers. It wants to choose experiences. If you've got somebody that comes to the table with doubt or whatever, skepticism, phenomena, the results will be low. And this is why it takes 2.5 years sometimes to get your circle right. Because you've got to fine tune the circle to the front. You've got to test the waters each and every time to get the best results. And when you do, you fine tune your circle, then you really go into it. And it can take a bit of time to get there. But once you do, you got to a point where you go into what is referred to as not instrumental transcommunication, but what is TDC, transdimensional communications. And that is when you start to be able to ask them questions and them give you answers. The problem is, though, when we were asked that the next session, can we come with 10 questions? Would you be prepared to answer 10 of these questions that we put forward? And he said, yes. We had to go away and figure out what 10 questions to put down. That was hard. It was damn hard. It's not as easy as you think, because you might think, oh, I can just roll it off my tongue now. Oh, yeah, I'll get asked about it. Well, really? If you really think that you might get the answer, do you want to know? You know, you really got to think it out. And of course, well, one of those questions, is there a heaven? You know, right. I mean, it's bound to be. It's one of the most significant questions that someone's going to say. Oh, what about heaven? You know, but they're so damn tricky, because the problem is that you know that you cannot breach the 10 questions, because it's an agreement, and they like agreements. They don't breach the agreements. You don't breach agreements with NHI. If they say 10, you can't sneak 11 in, right? You've got to be 10. Don't do 9. It's an insult. 10. So you do your 10. But the problem is when they turn around and say, after, when they're given the question, oh, and by the way, we asked these questions, yeah. But prior to getting them all out, they gave the response came as an electronic voice, because it sounds like you got a peg on your nose. Uh-huh. It's neither male nor female, and it comes up from it's always above you as well. Comes out the corner of the room. It's like sometimes it's like Dolby Atmos in some cases, but they delivered all answers before we gave all the questions. So, how did they know? Well, they were either reading it from our minds, or they were actually at our meeting sessions when we devised it. One of the two. I think they read our minds, and I think that they can get the measure of a man. They can read our minds. They know what's inside. So they know what questions we're going to ask. And this is why they delivered it before. They didn't have to, but they delivered it before we gave the questions on purpose to make us understand that their realm of obtaining knowledge breaches our physicality of our world. We don't have the capabilities of that yet, but they do. And they just went in, plucked it all out of us and gave it. And as a demonstration, they didn't have to. But the problem is that when you ask a question like, is there heaven? Do we go to heaven when we pass or die? And the answer comes back from NHI, for those that make it. You're like, what the freaking hell? I've got about over 100 questions now. And they do this on purpose. So you've got to be really, really clever about the questions you ask.
That's very specific.
Because you can rephrase that question. It can be longer and stuff, but you end up being entrapped into what the hell does that mean? But they do and have demonstrated knowledge of future events, even involving our own, myself and other researchers, to the day. So, yeah, they're aware. There's been discussions about technologies, what is perceived, how we would perceive it in our language would be a space-time bubble, where there's no inertia because it doesn't exist. That mountain over there, the sea below us, the sky up there, doesn't exist. It only exists to us, but it doesn't to them when they traverse in the bubble, and that also means the size of items within inside it, because it's bending space and time. If we can get our heads around that, you've got it, Chris. That's exactly it. If we can get our heads around that, then we're halfway there trying to understand it.
That was the one thing that they put in Age of Disclosure that I was like, I already knew that, but I was like, for the people who have no idea, I'm like, I guess that's good for them. But they brought up the reduction of math, the time-space bubble.
Why does the words alien abduction not appear in a UAP conference hearing?
Yeah.
It's not one of the biggest questions.
They never really get experiencers either, like people who've been taken.
They won't go down that road because it links in directly with a consciousness to occult physics with this phenomenon. They don't want to go there. And yet, it doesn't take a genius to work it out. The German forces are doing it, occult physics and stuff. They're well into it, and they got rewarded. Too rewarded, actually. That's why.
And then we had Project Paperclip, Then we had Project Paperclip, and the NASA and rockets, there it all is, So whole link. And go ahead, Chris.
Oh, sorry. Quick question. just in, but also Daniel had to step away, but we're keeping it going. But in any of your tests, have you ever had anyone present that was like sensitive or medium or anything like that that could pick up or anything in the environment or anything that
Don?
you guys couldn't perceive normally?
Yeah, I
Anything?
mean, one of the greatest people that we've done a lot of tests.
Hmm.
SCP, the Scientific Establishment of Parapsychology, was formed in 1996. So we've done a lot of work trying to find these individuals. And don't get me wrong, there are some incredible people out there.
Right.
But there was
It could be
one.
hard. Yeah.
It is hard to filter out. You've got to do the experiments. You've got to be recognized
Mhm.
by a parapsychological test
Triple
procedure.
blind tests and stuff.
Also, yeah, that and many others. Because you don't know what you're looking for when you say a sensitive. Well, what's that? Are they clairvoyant? Are they clairaudient? Are they clairsentient?
Hmm.
Or they got all five. Are they clairvoyant?
Hmm.
Or clairscience in the sense of speaking. But you don't know. Is it PK? Is it
Hmm.
telepathy? So we really got to go to town to try and sort of find out what's the scope. The best person we've come across is a gentleman called Don Phillips. He's a catalyst. We call him a catalyst. And he is incredible. And I've witnessed the phenomena there with him.
Mm.
And good things and not so good things.
Mm.
Things that, even though my scientific mind wants to stay there, my body took over and made me start taking steps back. And I didn't even know I was doing it.
Mhm.
Because my body was saying, "Get
Yeah,
out,
instincts. It was like,
get
no.
out." I didn't realize I was until that's kind of what the hell. But I went with what my body was telling me.
And that was in the Unsolved Mysteries episode, correct? Or am I
There
mistaken
was
on that?
there was a lot that they didn't put in the Unsolved Mysteries. So much, but
Right.
even though that they did film enough to make it's literally 4 episodes. So we didn't know what they were going to put in. They do what they do, Hollywood, But
Yes. Yeah.
I experienced, it's one of those things I don't know what it is, and this is very frustrating, when dealing with something which is of non-human intelligence, which is seen to be associated to a catalyst, which has been very beneficial and very helpful, but at the same time, it's got the power to take me to my knees and in a prayer position. It was not a nice experience, I can tell you, out of my comfort zone. But do you know what? Whatever this thing is, it's got an association with this individual, and obviously that might lend hand to some of the abilities that he seems to show, and he's quite incredible what he can do. So I've never actually come across somebody who's an all-rounder, so as we say. I've got certain people good at certain things, but I think Don's quite a bit of an all-rounder. So yes, we do, and we have utilised them on a number of investigations where we've gone in and conducted investigations. We did one in Seattle, which is known as the Washington State Poltergeist case, or the Demons in Seattle case uncovered. That documentary is online as well. You can get it on the Supernatural Files, which is Don's videos on his YouTube channel. And the full documentary is about an hour and a half documentaries there. And it was raw. What we experienced, it's happened whilst we were there.
I'm gonna
And
have
it's
to watch that.
incredible, it's
What's
so
it?
yeah. He's like you. When you walk into an environment, it becomes very excited that he's walked in that environment. It's as if it gets supercharged.
Mm.
So yes, it's good for you obtaining data, or evidence of phenomena in an environment if you take him in there, because he is being a catalyst. The phenomena seems to react to him, his presence in that location.
And Chris and the audience that's watching this, you can find episodes on Steve Mera's YouTube channel, Steve Mera Official 2024, and find his interviews with Don, his conversations with Don, and this entity that helps him. His name is Becky. It's amazing. It'll just blow your mind. And so I highly suggest that everyone watch, subscribe, like, share Steve Mera's videos. Again, that's Steve Mera Official 2024 on YouTube. Let's get the word out on Steve's research and his assistant, or his fellow researcher Barry, on Don, and all that stuff. Let's get this out there, because we're still being inundated when it comes to this topic with I don't even know if it's safe to say half truths. Probably about that much truth and a whole bunch of fiction when it comes to investigating the phenomena, what happens during the phenomena, the real life applications as far as influence on humanity with the phenomena. And I am so incredibly thankful that you came and joined us today, Steve. This is
No,
just
it's been good,
monumental.
John. I
Thank
enjoyed
you.
it. You know,
Eh,
I like to share these information because it's critical information, and people can experience it in this. You know, there's no special cocktail that I've got that anybody else
no,
can't have. You know, it's
no.
out there. We live in a world of wonder and mysterious stuff. And I think it's some people are just pioneers that want to try and find out more. You know, just no different than Columbus or anybody else was one pioneers that wanted to find out and discover more, was not happy with life. Because you know what, really, we are gone in the blink of an eye. Time goes very, very fast, and it does seem to go. It is true when kids say, "Why does it? Does it really go fast when you get older?" Yes,
Yes,
it
yes, it
does
does.
seem to be
It
this
does.
paradox things of reality,
It
and
does.
before you know it, you know, you're thinking to yourself, you know, we've been part of a wonderful place. We've got to at least try and figure out as much as we can about this place that we've been born to, is, you know, and take it with us. You know, it's just little discoveries, but I think everybody should do it rather than put your head down and just carry on with
Well,
mundane
yeah.
life. There's more to it than that, isn't there? Much more.
Well, it's all you had said earlier. I don't recall whether it was, pre-interview, but you never stop learning. And this is important. I think we should always be inquisitive. Of course, we should never accept an answer and just be like, well, that's convenient. That's an answer for me. We should always challenge what we're being told. Okay, especially from institutions. It's like science. Science is not meant there to say, this is it. That's it. Based on
No.
Mhm.
fact. Because that fact is really a theory that always changes with the more information that we find out. It's when we put ourselves in these boxes, like they try to put the phenomena and the paranormal in boxes, to where we actually close ourselves. We put ourselves in the box while the phenomena and everything else just runs rampant outside of it. Okay, so we have to make sure that we always challenge not only that, but ourselves
Mhm.
to find out what reality, what is the meaning of life, which is like one of the questions that everybody has, regardless of race, religion, creed, age. Okay, so that way I tip my hat off to you, good sir, because you are
Thank
doing
you.
everyone a great service. And so I hope that we do have you on again, Steve.
Yes,
And
forward to it. Thank you for having me on, John. It was good. It was good meeting you, Christian. I know
Nice
Daniel.
to meet you.
Give Daniel my regards. And yes, keep
definitely.
in touch, guys. You know, I can say 2026, what we are going to be heading out for releasing of this year is about quantum imaging, is
Mm.
about the things
Yes.
that are going on. We are going to release it. I'm involved in with the science guys about releasing some of this stuff. What's around us that we would never know? It's not in infrared. Forget ultraviolet. Forget all those wonderful things that we have in cameras. This is out beyond the veil of it ever being recognised. You'd be surprised what's around us, which
Excellent.
leads us to believe only one thing: we are living in some form of simulation. The evidence
Mm.
is stacking up, and NHI control it and manipulate it. So
I think it's
we are
holographic in
really are
nature.
puppets on a string sometimes. But I am going to be releasing that over the next few months anyway. We
Excellent.
actually got a plan to release that now. So I'll keep you guys in the fold, and I look
Please.
forward to coming back on the show again. So keep in touch, guys, and it's been a pleasure.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate
Talk
it.
soon.
Bad monkey.